Jenny Fogg,
Present.
Crystal Grant, Lisa Phillip,
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Nadja Trey,
Present. Good afternoon.
good afternoon, Sarah Bigley,
Present, thank you.
Luann Llewellyn,
Present. Thank you.
Adam Johnson,
Good afternoon, present.
Maureen Stover, Eugenia Floyd,
Present.
Jenny Watson, Margaret McLaughlin Howard,
Present.
Dr. Denise Tillery, Dr. Michelle White, Dr. Andrew Houlihan,
Present.
Dr. Valerie Bridges,
Present.
Mr. Jeremy Wallace, Tanita Filial Rogers,
Good afternoon. Present.
Lucia Riley,
Hi there. Present.
David Dean,
Present.
Catherine Oxendine, Simran Fitzpatrick,
Present.
Brenda Stevens,
Present.
Lucy Edwards, Tamika Walker Kelly,
Present.
Amy Marshall,
Present.
Tammy Beach, Terrence Ruth,
Present.
sorry, Dr. Terrence Ruth, Dr. Terry Stoops,
I'm here.
Stephen Gay,
Present.
Sandeep Agarwal, and Tina Lance.
Present.
We have quorum. And I believe Dr. Bridges is having some audio difficulties.
Committee members, would you please let me know if you can hear me? I am struggling to hear you all. I will reconnect if that's what I need to do.
We can hear you well. Reconnecting will be great. One moment, everyone. We're still working out technical difficulties. Thank you so much for your patience.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, while Dr. Bridges is trying to fix the technical difficulties on her end, we will proceed with our meeting agenda. So our agenda and materials are available online through the DPI website, www.ncpublicschools.org, on the SBE meetings link. The link is also audio streamed through, this meeting is also audio streamed through a link located at the bottom of the Assembly agenda. I will now read the ethics statement that is required of us. Committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Does any member of the committee know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring your matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. All right. Dr. Bridges, are you back?
I'm sort of back. If you'll keep going, as soon as I'm good, I will send you a text. Will that be okay?
That will be just fine, Dr. Bridges.
Thank you, Tamika. I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda for today's meeting, February 22nd, 2022. Committee members, you have had an opportunity to review the proposed agenda for today's meeting. Do we have a motion to approve this agenda for the February 22nd meeting today?
So moved.
All right. We have a motion to approve the agenda from David Dean. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. We have a motion and a second to approve today's meeting. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Those in favor of the approval of the agenda, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, the motion is approved. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our January 25th meeting. Our minutes have been prepared and made available to you. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Okay, there has been a motion made to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been properly moved in second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, those in favor of approval of the January minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, the motion is approved. Thank you very much. So before we begin our presentation this afternoon, I do want to thank you for your participation in voting for your first and second subcommittee choice. We are working on the subcommittee framework and we'll be sending out more information in the next couple of weeks. And so now we will open the floor to Dr. Angie Mullen to speak on the Promising Practices Clearinghouse. And I apologize for mispronouncing your last name, but I will turn the floor over to you.
You're perfectly fine, Tamika. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So it feels like yesterday when we met, but I know it wasn't. And we have made progress on the clearinghouse since our last meeting. Renee, you can flip to the next slide. I'm going to get us to the actual clearinghouse, but just as a reminder, it is aligned to Operation Polaris and our focus on learning, recovery, and acceleration, literacy, human capital, accountability and testing, and student support services, all ensuring educational equity in the midst of those processes. You can go to the next one, Renee. And this, Renee, will take you on the next slide. It'll take you, not that one. You can keep going. Yeah, let's just go to the clearinghouse. So if you'll click that, Renee, it's going to take you out of the slides to the actual website.
Yeah, Angie, it's not allowing me to do that link here in this presentation.
Okay. Can I put the link in the chat and you go that route? Will that work?
I put the link in the chat for those who would like to open it.
Thanks, Lynn. Can Renee, are you able to click on the link in the chat so I can walk through it? Okay, cool. So this is housed underneath our Office of Learning, Recovery, and Acceleration webpage. When you go to this website, you'll see that brief blurb about what this is. But just to remind everyone, this is essentially a database, but for the sake of not confusing it with all of the other various databases that we have, it's a clearinghouse similar to the What Works clearinghouse. We are compiling monthly assets into this clearinghouse, and so we uploaded January's recently, a few weeks ago, and February's will be uploaded probably on Monday. We're still finalizing one more asset before we upload those in. And so if you scroll down a little bit, Renee, to the circles, the big circles underneath, select one or more strands, and you just hover over one of those. So you'll see the definition of what learning, recovery, and acceleration is. That is the same definition that is from or summary that is from the Operation Polaris guidebook. So that probably looks familiar to you. And then underneath of that, we have examples, and there are lots of examples for each of these strands. And this is not limited to the examples that are shown there. So we just wanted to give you some ideas and give the public some ideas and school staff example ideas, because if we say literacy, some folks may have a very limited view of what that might mean. And literacy is greater than, what some might initially think. So there's digital literacy. There are lots of efforts toward ensuring our students are literate and improving literacy. So then if you go down a little bit further, Renee, to the map, those stars there, those 5 stars indicate the 5 sites across the state that are highlighted for January. So once February's are uploaded, you'll see more stars on the map. And you see there, Renee is hovering over one of the stars. She's hovering over Halifax County Schools. And it has the theme or the focus of engaging students through work-based learning. If you remember, that was our theme for January. And then it has the title of the focus and then also the school district. And then there is a little bit further down, there's a brief explanation of the practice. And then you see the illuminated eye and the link. And so for the assets, we have for the practices, we have different assets based on what we were able to put together for that particular site. Some of these sites have videos, some do not, some have websites, all of them have infographics. So if it's not illuminated, as you see with that camera there for that particular site, then there's no video. And then underneath of that, know of a promising practice. We are encouraging everyone to submit practices. You can submit, so if I am Superintendent Houlihan and I want to submit for my district or have one of my district folks submit some stuff, they can do that. Or maybe there is a Boys and Girls Club or an organization that partners with Union County Schools and they want to submit. We're perfectly fine with stakeholder groups submitting practices, but they will notice that at the end of the submission, it does, as I mentioned before, it does request the superintendent or charter leader or lab school leader to have awareness of the submission. We want to make sure that there's that communication that's happening. And I think that would happen naturally anyway. If somebody was going to submit on behalf of a district or charter school or lab school, I'm sure there was a conversation that happens before that takes place. And then of course our email is there if you have additional questions. So again, this is growing. We anticipate that this will continue to grow monthly, and by the fall, we should have a really strong collection of promising practices. For February, we are focusing on teacher housing initiatives, and there are several sites for that. And one of the sites is Duke Teach House, and I've already been on a meeting with Duke Teach House representatives and NC Central, because NC Central heard that Duke Teach House has been around for a while, for a few years. And but through the promising practices work, word got to NC Central that they were being highlighted, and they got a little interested and wanted to know more. And so I was on a call with both of those university staff to discuss what that might look like. in another example, Christy Van Auken, who is on the call with us, she had a potential investor reach out to her about a couple districts that investor was interested in establishing some teacher housing after hearing about Bertie County Schools and their use of the ARP funds to establish some teacher housing. So Dr. Marr calls this the diffusion of innovation, which is really good. We're already, just a few weeks into, 6 weeks into establishing this, and we're already starting to see that. So I feel like it's a positive, and it's doing what it is supposed to do, which is share information and allow those who need that information to take it and make it their own if it fits the context for their particular school district or school.
Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. The last time we met, the Promising Practices Clearinghouse had not been up yet, and so we wanted you to come back and share with us now that the website is live, what it looks like. So thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone have any questions for her? All right, thank you all so much. So I am going to turn it back over to Dr. Bridges. And here we go.
I'm happy to chime in and get us on schedule. Thank you so much, Tamika, for helping us out, and Dr. Bridges. We're looking forward to hopefully getting you back on. So I'm going to go quickly through these next slides. Renee, if you could move to the next one. So those who are familiar with the world of education, which is everybody on this call, State Board is coming up. So that will be March 2nd and 3rd. And so on Wednesday the 2nd, there are quite a few appropriations that are coming before State Board. And so I literally wanted to take 5 minutes to run you through what you will hear on the 2nd in terms of the funding. So these first two we have gone over before, but we are doing the Summer Career Accelerator programs. This is a continuation of PRC 170. There's so many PRCs running through my mind right now, but it's the Career Accelerator program that is going to launch this summer, and this is a continuation of that. So the process will be very much the same. We had committee meeting yesterday, and 189 we actually might push until the April board meeting, just because the Vice Chair Duncan asked for some clarification around the distribution of funds and who we would partner with, and just details, which $36 million is a lot of money. And so we certainly respect the fact that they want more details before we approve that policy. So 188 will go before board next month, and then 189 might be pushed to April. We're working on that. So and then the next one, you can just see it's a $7.2 million appropriation. And then on the next slide, there's a few more that will be going before State Board. And these are funds, again, that were appropriated in the budget. These are SR3 funds. And these are allotment policies, meaning that the funding is an application for PSUs. They will either opt in or out of receiving those funds with a simple application in one of our systems. And then they receive the funds directly, and then they have to utilize those funds within the parameters of the policy and the guidelines set forth in CCIP. So a CTE one that's hospitality focused, district school turnaround grants, and then the middle grades reading program, and that was actually a list of PSUs that were named in legislation. But all 3 of those will be going before board. And then on the next slide, there are actually a lot of contracts. So if you come to state board next month, bring some popcorn because the BizOp committee will be plentiful. But this was one of the ones that our office is the business owner of, and this is the innovation project. It's a high-tech learning accelerator, and so we created a scope of work in partnership with them that will really align with the career accelerator work that we're doing, that also aligns with the year of the workforce for 2022 that Superintendent Truitt has launched, and also the work that Christy Van Auken is doing, which she will go into a little bit later. So most of the appropriations will either be in process or they will start to be distributed March, April. Our 2 projects, even though they're coming before board, we won't launch those applications until July. We just wanted to get the policies approved. So a lot of work that the agency has done to get all of these set up. So we're excited that we're crossing the finish line with these appropriations. So I believe that's the last of my slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the funding if anyone has any.
I have a quick question. Amy Marshall.
Sure.
Does the SR3 fund allotment have anything to do with, or is it tied to a particular school district's mask policy or face covering policy? There's been some people who have alleged that the SR3 funds are somehow tied to COVID restrictions that the local school district would have in place. Could you speak to that and just confirm that there is no connection between the SR3 funds allotment and a school district's face covering policy?
Yeah, the answer is 100% no. There is no correlation between distribution of funds, allocation of funds, and what that district chooses to do in terms of social distancing or masking. And so the SR3 appropriation, the 90% that was distributed to the districts, has actually been out for quite some time, and they have also already submitted their plans. And what happens is once they start identifying ways they would like to spend those funds, they do budget revisions, and in no way is anything politically tied to the distribution of funds. And that's the same for any of these appropriations. So a lot of these were sole source named in legislation, but they're not tied to anything that has to do with masking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, going back to PRC 188 and PRC 189, the funds for summer as well as after school and before school. This, that's
We lost your audio.
Renee, while she's reconnecting, could you go back to that slide if you can? While Sharonda is reconnecting, does anyone else have any questions that we could answer before she is able to reconnect? And it looks like she may be getting there. And so in terms of the subcommittees that Tamika referenced at the top of the meeting, these would be 2 programs that once we're in the development of what the guidance documents and kind of the guardrails for these programs will look like. This is where, for those who were on kind of the programming subcommittee, we would bring these before you to get input from the experts with this group to help shape the guidelines and the guidance documents and the implementation and even the research and evaluation, right? We always can do continuous improvements for our programs. So these would be something we would bring before this group. We're just not at a place to do that yet.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm sorry. I think I was kicked out, but I think you answered what was going to be my question.
Okay.
So we're just making the appropriations before the state board.
So I think I'm back. This is Valerie. I just wanted to see if we were ready to move forward with the governmental operations update from Dr. Michael Meyer.
I think we are. So Sharonda, if you want to just message me or put it in the chat, I'm happy to respond in chat so that people can see the response. But to clarify, yes, we are putting the policy and the allotment file and the allotment policy before state board, but the actual application will not be launched or approved until the end of this fiscal year, and I'll probably launch in July. So we have time to kind of fine tune and shape both of those programs. But with that, there's additional questions, please put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. And we will turn it over to Dr. Marr to give us an update on our time spent over at the GA.
Yeah, thank you. So Dr. Bridges and commission members, thank you for giving me a chance to talk about the Joint Legislative Commission on Governmental Operations, the subcommittee on the use and distribution of federal funding. On February 1st, Superintendent Truitt and I were called to testify in front of this joint subcommittee. And as you can see, the reason was really to look at the use of federal funding, federal COVID funds, to specifically address learning recovery, or what the federal law referred to as learning loss. We were there from noon till 3 o'clock. So it was about a 3-hour sworn testimony. And I was asked to basically speak to not only the overall plan for the Office of Learning Recovery, but also answer a number of questions that got into both summer programming and then targeted recovery programs, and then our use of data to drive specific improvement. And this is the only slide we have for this, right, Lynn? And I've asked, Jamie Falkenberry is actually going to pull, there's video. So if anyone is interested, you can watch the video if you want to subject yourself to that, but there will be video available, and we'll send that out to you.
And that is correct. There was the 2 slides. Okay.
Yeah. So certainly, with that, I think it's probably easier. If there are any questions, I can answer questions, but there really wasn't much in that presentation that you all haven't heard in one of the prior meetings.
And Michael, if I could give an update, so the in progress. So we have hired a qualitative research analyst, and I believe, Jenny, do you want to introduce our new staff member? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Hi everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, I'm so thrilled to have Erin Manuel join us. I think she's in the office today. Is she on video? But Erin comes to us from one of the districts. She was an at-risk coordinator in Lee County Schools, but came up through the ranks in Moore. She was a class art education teacher, classroom teacher, assistant principal, fell in love and realized her passion was around qualitative research. So I really feel like we found an amazing team member to help kind of round out the team. You guys got to meet Kalen Clifton at a previous meeting. His area of expertise is quantitative methodology. So it really, I feel like it just gives us a great kind of well-rounded group of folks to be able to support not just like statewide learning and recovery efforts, but really gives us an opportunity to partner, at the district level with our charters and thinking about how to really approach evidence-based decision-making, with a lot of rigor, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So really thrilled that she's joined the team, and she's actually going to help me when we go through and do the update on the qualitative research partners.
Awesome. And then I have 2 job descriptions out waiting on position numbers for a program administrator and the program analyst. Really what those are is the program analyst is going to be my project manager to help me with some of the logistics. There's a lot of administrative logistics that come with being a business owner or a business partner with all of these appropriations and programs and projects. But the program administrator will essentially be in charge of kind of monitoring, not from like a compliance standpoint, but really working with the districts to help make informed decisions for evidence-based interventions for their students. And this isn't being talked about a lot right now. It's a lot of it is what are they spending their ESSER 1 and 2 money on? But this is going to be, I foresee a hot topic of that 20% that has to be dedicated towards learning recovery. So we're hiring someone for our team to specifically focus on that. And if we look at the programmatic aspect of the subcommittees, I think that this person will probably tap into the resources within this group for kind of support and guidance in terms of how we help kind of shape that support of our PSUs. And with that, Jenny, I think I will turn it back over to you.
So, Lynn, you just hit on something that I have a question about it. And I don't know if this is, maybe that's what you're referring to with the project administrator, but we seem to have a lot of money flowing to these schools, and which is great. I'm sure it can be overwhelming to some of the districts that have a hard time with staffing. Is there discussion going on around how to support some of the smaller districts in not only making evidence-based decisions, but actually processing all of this and getting the paperwork submitted and done on time? Can you speak to that?
Yeah,
absolutely. If I could chime in real quickly, and then I'll turn it over to you, Michael. So
yeah, go ahead.
We kind of organically, and that's a great question, David. We organically have started working one-on-one with districts who need our help, right? So as an agency, we can provide guidelines of what is reasonable, allowable, but we can't necessarily tell them who to use and what to spend it on outside of the scope of the money. But some districts need help, and so I know Michael has traveled the state to work with one-on-one with districts, and there's some that their central office is 4 people. And so I'm meeting with a district this Thursday who have not been able to finalize their summer program plans because they don't have the bandwidth to do so. So we have been doing it kind of organically and as requests have been coming in, but the goal with this new position is to help create a more formal and efficient process to support the districts in terms of the funding applications. Because for those who don't know, every one of those allotment policies you saw has an application. So there's an application that goes with it. There's a budget for the money. So there's like multiple steps for every tiny pot of money. And if you're a smaller district with not a lot of staff, that's it's an administrative burden. So I'm hoping that person will be able to help us create an efficient process. But Michael, I'll turn it over to you to comment.
No, I think you're right, Lynn, in what you've said. Additionally, so David, some of the stuff that's happened, particularly in the agency, was a transition to ensure that all of the applications are done in a singular system. Mm-hmm. So they use a system called CCIP. And then we've worked hard inside our unit to make sure we streamline the application process, so we're not asking districts for extraneous information or something that's not necessary for them to make good decisions. So in terms of kind of the processing time, we've tried to automate that as much as possible to make that easy. You can't get away from the staffing challenges, right? 80% of North Carolina is fairly small rural districts, and those districts oftentimes have fewer staff to dedicate to the work. And so that's where you hear so I've traveled to districts, Lynn has traveled to districts, and so we offer kind of one-on-one technical support when we can do that. We're also enlisting the help of the Serve Center in Greensboro. the Comprehensive Center in Greensboro. And so that housed at UNCG to help us actually cohort districts together. The idea being if we can bring some of these smaller districts together, it will help them in terms of how they think about spending their funds and kind of streamlining that process so districts aren't always starting from scratch when they're trying to allocate their dollars towards this work. So we're trying to be not necessarily as comprehensive, but as strategic as we can with the support. And then Jenny's going to talk more about the research side. So each of those spending programs also has a requirement around program evaluation. And so some of those programs have a specific external evaluator as a research partner who's going in and looking at the impact of that program on student performance. But some of these others don't have specific evaluators named. And so that's where we're working to align researchers with districts when needed, or we have overarching research activities that are overseen by the Office of Learning and Recovery to evaluate impact. So we're trying to do kind of three different things here. So one is kind of technical support, one-on-one technical support when we can provide that and when it's needed. Then there's the more kind of comprehensive, systematic work using systems, kind of technology to help streamline the process. And then that third piece, of course, is the research and evaluation side. So let me know if you want, if you need any more detail or have any other questions.
Great, thank you.
All right. I know y'all are so excited to dive into the qualitative research component of this. I feel like we're like recruiting people for our subcommittee. So for those that are really excited by data, by research, by thinking about kind of both what quantitatively and qualitatively, the stories that we can learn about the experience of students and teachers and principals. Look, Sharonda wants to participate on multiple subcommittees. I'll leave that to our chair and vice chair to decide if that's allowable. But if you do the data subcommittee, that is where you'll get to work with me and with Aaron and Kaylin, among the other people on the OLR, but really helping to kind of elevate and tell these stories of the experience of students and teachers during the pandemic and their recommendations for strategies that the state can support and districts should be implementing to help build learning, recovery, and acceleration to really accelerate those opportunities. So I actually just had a call about this. We're going to be talking about this particular project, these qualitative research partners. I'm really excited about this as an opportunity. Just got off the phone with one of our state board members because we're going to be presenting on this next week too. And some of the pieces of feedback that he was giving us was that, the State Board of Education and the legislature hasn't had a lot of experience with qualitative data. So this really is an opportunity for us, for kind of those of us from the research and evaluation background, to really help some of our state level policymakers understand the power of qualitative data, understand that it's a very systematic approach that really helps round out a lot of the kind of hard numbers that so many of us have seen for so many years. But so this, I really kind of hats off to Michael Marr in recognizing that we really needed a way to be able to elevate that voice, lift up, and tell the story from the perspective of the student, from the teacher, the principal, the district administrator, and parents about their experience during the pandemic. So the way there was some remaining funds in the SR2 State Reserve, there was about $500,000 there. There was a lot more than that, but senior leadership kind of got together and thought about what are our biggest priorities for this. Dr. Marr advocated for use of some of these funds expressly for qualitative data. And some of that was based on the feedback we were getting from folks in the field, from the visits to the districts during the summer last year, from listening to the state board when they were asking us questions about why did so many students participate or not participate in the summer extension programs? Why was this a good model for helping students to recover credits and recognizing that really the best way to get that data turned around and help and help to kind of understand some of that why was really in that the power of the narrative. Exactly. So we did a call for research partners, qualitative research partners, to better understand the experience of these critical stakeholder groups all around the state. We really want to be able to provide actionable information both to the Office of Learning Recovery, to this committee, to the State Board of Education, to legislators, to support decision making around improvements to learning recovery and acceleration programs, as well as to kind of learn from what's gone on last summer and the summer coming up for summer 2022, and what these critical stakeholder groups can provide as far as recommendations going forward. And furthermore, we're about to release a lot of kind of big data, like the SAS report that's going to be coming, as well as some of the other, like building off the school extension report, and to really explore and understand the why of those quantitative results. We've got 4 main research partners here: ECU, and this is the Rural Education Institute at ECU, and then we've got NC State and Duke are partnered, so it's the Friday Institute, and then the Social Science, I always forget the SS something Institute, Social Science something Institute. And
SSRI.
SSRI, yeah, Social Science Research Institute. But it really is kind of an applied research center that's at Duke. It focuses a lot on those research practice partnerships. So it's a good fit for this kind of work. The Serve Center at UNCG, they have a number of researchers and evaluators. We've got 3 that are going to be focused on this project with us. And then, of course, the UNC in the School of Public Policy, the EPIC group does a lot of the big quantitative studies for the state, but they have some qualitative researchers on the team, mixed methods, that'll help, I think, dive in and partner around some of this work. If you'll go to the next slide. And Aaron, are you on? Are you on camera? Do you want to jump on and talk through any of these pieces? Erin Manuel is our new qualitative researcher, as I mentioned, and she is actually going to be our main point of contact leading this work for the Office of Learning Recovery. So Erin, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Thank you, Jenny. And I just want to say how excited I am to join the OLR team. And it's literally my 2nd week here, so I'm learning people, places, and things like we all have to do when we go into a new setting. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also honored to be a part of this important work that ties to the ways that we're evaluating the implementation interventions sponsored by the OLR team and supported by State Superintendent Truitt and the State Board's vision. So as Jenny has mentioned, the OLR has partnered with 4 universities under the UNC system, and the focus of of these studies are about the Learn Recovery Program, School Extension, Summer Bridge, and Career Accelerator, as Lynn mentioned initially about the jump-off point for these particular research partners. The unit analysis for the studies will include school, district, and region level, and each partnership has a specific region that they're focused on and targeting populations in. Before I go on, I want to mention that there is a PDF that's also been shared with you all in the Assembly Board handout for the day's agenda. So please, when you get a chance, look at the specific information related to the research partners and their studies. The critical stakeholders, again, we're looking at students, parents, teachers, and/or administrators. And our research questions, I like to say, focus on the 3 I's, which include the implementation, impact, or improvement of these programs. And our outcomes of interest include students, families, and educators. Again, as a qualitative approach, we're interested in looking at the natures of meanings, experiences, the context of specific settings, as well as perspective. So that's what we will be focusing on in partnership with our 4 universities.
Oh, and Erin, before you move on, sorry, if you'll go back one slide, I just wanted to flag for folks. So the State Board Districts 1 and 2, the eastern part of, like the eastern seaboard of the state, that's going to be ECU's kind of region. They are, as you all know, they are so committed to the rural experience and the rural context So we're thrilled that that will be their area. We've decided collectively as a group that NC State is going to take the Triangle and Sandhills. UNCG Serve will do Piedmont Southwest, and that the Northwest and Western region will be covered by the UNC Chapel Hill EPIC team. And the other kind of really special thing I think about this project is Aaron will be facilitating kind of a network of researchers. We had our kickoff meeting last week and the wealth of knowledge and experience on that call and in that meeting it was wonderful. People were sharing expertise. We had somebody who's like a foreign language teacher, and then somebody else who is an expert kind of case study analysis sort of person. So really trying to build a research network and community of practice among the research partners. And I just think that'll be it'll be a great opportunity for them to get to know one another, and also for us as a department to be able to leverage their collective expertise. So if we can go to the next slide.
I'll jump back in here. The project timeline, our researchers will embark. We will embark on our journey together beginning in the summer of 22. So we're very excited about that. It is a 15-month journey. And the project timeline is, we've already, like I said, Jenny's already mentioned about having our jump off, which was last Thursday, for our research partners until the April 30th, 2023. We will continue to have all hands meetings that will keep everyone abreast about where our research teams are currently working on. Those, again, will be May, November, and in the following year, February and April. So we're in the process of nailing down those dates. And as expected, is important that we have deliverables, and it's required that we have deliverables, an interim progress report, a final report, and presentations upon request. And of course, we want you all to be a part of our partnerships to establish almost a way to really get a sense about what the qualitative perspective is about in the context of what is occurring in the presentations and the studies. So we really want to make sure we continue our partnership with ARP along with the state board, the charter school advisories, and NCTPI directors and executive leadership as we pursue this journey together.
Thank you, Erin. So exactly like that says, presentations upon request. We will work directly with the subcommittee, the data subcommittee, to think about when it might be, what might be a good kind of cadence for presentation to this group. And we'll, bring this back. We're really hoping to get some of the researchers in front of you guys so you can ask them questions yourself. And with that, we will turn it over to my friend, Chrissy Van Auken, to talk about next steps for the Year of the Workforce and Portrait of a Graduate. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you all, including Dr. Bridges and board members. And I'm delighted to be here, and thank you to the Office of OLR for inviting me today. Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay, thank you, Renee. So Year of the Workforce, I'm here to talk a little bit about workforce and Portrait of the Graduate, two things that you may have read about in the media or in various education newsletters. So the question that we keep getting asked is, why the Year of the Workforce? Why are we doing this? And what we have found is the pandemic really has accelerated the need to align K-12 with workforce requirements. And I think we knew this actually before the pandemic, quite frankly, but we have a new impetus, if you will, and a new urgency around these requirements, because there's been a lot of additional workforce trends that are coming out that have been accelerated, including the Great Resignation, including other demographic trends related to flexibility and childcare, et cetera. So the time is now. So that's probably the biggest reason. Additionally, North Carolina is recruiting top companies. So think about Google, Toyota, Fidelity Investments, Fujifilm, Centene, Thermo Fisher. You can see the list here. It's very impressive. And this was just last year. So it was a record-breaking year in business investment more than $10 billion invested in North Carolina by these companies, generate an estimated 24,000 jobs. And there's a lot of good reasons why companies want to come here. We've got great weather and natural resources, very business-friendly tax structure, and top-notch community college system, and strong fundamentals for a talent pipeline. And that's, of course, where we come in. Next slide, please. Regardless of all of that, though, we have a lot of jobs in North Carolina that are going unfilled. There's just a mismatch. We have 46,000 tech jobs that are open right now, and this is according to the North Carolina Tech Association. Right now, we have more job openings than we have job seekers, also a pandemic concern. And what we're finding is that the lowest wage job sectors are the hardest hit. And I'm sure that if anybody has been to Target, I was just there this last weekend, Starbucks was closed, and there are no carts. Like, there was nobody to actually get carts, take them there. So think about that, or going to your favorite restaurants and waiting longer. Low wage jobs that have high levels of interactions with the public are continue to be significantly hit by the pandemic and by this kind of new jobs reality. Next slide, please. So here are some of those big labor market trends. The Great Resignation, the big quit. People are kind of saying, just job and job it. If they don't like it, they can get a lot of other jobs, and that's a new reality. I think that's fairly birth rates are declining in the U.S. and not just here, but globally. So if we think that maybe immigration is one of the big saviors to our workforce challenges, I think we're going to have to rethink that, because in the next 15, 20 years, as birth rates decline across the country and as the standard of living goes up, people simply will not want to migrate for jobs that Americans don't want to do, but really many people don't want to do. Think about things like deboning chickens, for example. Automation and AI are driving a lot of workforce changes, high-value jobs too. So think about the financial and technical sectors, for example. However, that doesn't mean that all jobs are going to be kind of forced out. It's just a new reality. And I think it lends itself to some other new trends and to new skills and new ways for us to think about what do students need to know and be able to do when they leave high school. We need more skills and credentials. We also know that the employee is in the driver's seat now. So the employee can literally take that job, and they really don't have to go there. And a logistics employer recently said at a meeting I was attending that it's not just a CDL, right? So it's not just the commercial driver's license that they can't find. It's the person that they want to offer $50,000 to for a job that they also can't find talent. People are not showing up for that interview, and that's a new reality check. So let's talk about the youth workforce for a moment. So millennials, they really care about flexibility, and they can parcel together 2 or 3 careers that in the past, you would maybe have somebody that would stay in the same career for 10, 15, 20, even 30 years. Millennials and those that are younger, Gen Z, not interested in that. They don't want their parents' career. And they also don't want to be a slave to productivity. So we used to pride ourselves on working 60 hours a week and going to work sick and all of these things to show that we were dedicated and productive employees. And frankly, that is not what the younger workforce really values. And there's also this shift in worker motivation. So independent contractors are taking control of their career in new ways, and flexible work hours, non-traditional remote work, all of it is now the norm, and it is equal to pay in importance, if not more so. And next slide, please. If anybody has any questions in the chat, also as we move along here, I'm moving along very rapidly. So what have we learned? So employers are increasingly asking for durable or employability skills, more so than ever before. Things like leadership and communication, adaptability, problem solving, and whether you're going into the workforce or if you're going into the military or other places. I'm not sure if somebody maybe needs to mute their speaker. I'm getting a little feedback. Thank you. So we've also found through various levels of research that non-degree credentials are more important than ever. And if we're going to reach 2 million employees with either a non-degree credential of value or a degree, baccalaureate or higher, which is the North Carolina attainment goal, we have got to put more emphasis on getting non-degree credentials that are valued. So things, think about, for example, more electrical licensures or construction trades or tech credentials. And one thing that the superintendent of public instruction has spoken to is the idea of diploma integrity. We are graduating students. 87% are graduating from high school, but many don't know where they're going next and don't have a plan for their post-secondary next steps, if you will. So what do we want to do? We really feel like that the imperative has shifted from all students going to college to all students preparing for the post-secondary plans of their choice. So what we know is we can't go back to normal. There is no really such thing. We have it's in times of incredible disruption like we're in now that we can maybe change things for the better. So thinking about how can we extend into the full education experience, applied learning, more industry and business partnerships, more abilities. I mean, frankly, the superintendent would love to see work-based learning built into every high school experience. And then also, how do we both build and measure durable skills in our students? So these are some of the things that we're focused on as we move through the year of the workforce. Next slide. So what are we doing with this? Next slide. So here are the four, these are the four workforce goals that the superintendent rolled out in a conversation with Gary Salamito, who's the president of the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce. So they were in conversation talking about alignment. How are we going to ensure that there is a solid and robust talent pipeline for the economic effort and for growing companies in the state? So this can look a lot of different ways. It's about getting companies to invest time, energy, and work experiences with our students. Next slide, please. Goal number 2 is about workforce pathways. We're not very good yet at being able to articulate or to demonstrate what type of pathway students could actually have. Some schools are better at this than others, but we may need to shift away from this narrative that students should just bulk up on AP coursework and not necessarily think about what kind of coursework could line up with a pathway that really amplifies their interest. So think about an engineering student, for example, somebody who might be interested in engineering, where they should maybe be taking classes in science and in mathematics, but also in data analytics, and maybe grabbing a certificate in Excel. There's a lot of different ways that we can help students understand what those pathways look like. And if we listen closely to companies, they'll tell us exactly what those. Next slide, please. Communication. So this is, I think, an area where we can make very quick progress. It's very low-hanging fruit, but right now students and parents have a lot of confusion about what those pathways look like to post-secondary plan. And they also there's a lot of confusion about even how they might get involved in dual enrollment, or what early college would look like for their students, and how they can get college for in many cases in high school for no cost. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to communicate these valuable experiences that are already being offered in both college and career promise and career and technical education. Next slide. All right, so number 4 is work-based learning. We truly believe that all students should engage in some type of work-based learning experiences that would progress as the student goes through their K-12 journey. So starting with things like maybe field trips and remote or bringing in parents to talk about their careers and into the classroom, and then evolving from that into job shadowing and after that into internships and apprenticeships. So thinking that a student who might think that they want to be a veterinarian because they love animals, well, maybe if they go and spend a week at a veterinarian clinic, they may or may not reinforce that career goal and could save them a lot of time and parents a lot of money as they embark on what's next after they cross the graduation stage. So there, thank you for dropping that into the chat, Lynn Barber. Any questions before we move on to portrait? Okay, very good. So let's move to the next slide, please. So the state of North Carolina is going to embark on a very exciting project. We, at the urging of the state superintendent, will be creating a statewide portrait. And there are other states that have a portrait, including North Dakota, including Utah, the state of Washington, Texas, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Many students have gone to this level to start really thinking about, what does it mean? What do we want when our students cross that graduation stage? What should they know? What should they be able to do? And what mindset should they possess in order to be successful in the post-secondary plan of their choice? But not only will we be able to articulate that and lay that out, we want this to serve as a foundation for a new competency-based accountability system. And Dr. Angie Milinex, who's also on this call, is helping us to lead that transition so that students aren't necessarily just focused on seat time, but students actually can progress at their own rate, and students and teachers can work together to make sure that they are making appropriate progress, and that we are measuring that in a way that doesn't necessarily rely on high stakes end of year testing. It will also help play into a new school report card, a revised school report card that will be multi-measured. So instead of just thinking about proficiency and growth, what about if we were to look at a school and say, hey, this school offers every student work-based learning. Every student that comes out of this school has a career development plan before they graduate, and it's been reviewed and revised 2 or 3 times. So we're starting to look at, or absenteeism, for example, is another exceptional metric for school success. And as a parent, I think we'd want to know those types of things and to move away from a letter grade for a school and move towards something that looks more like maybe a 5-star rating. And again, these are very early days, but we're going to start with the portrait of a graduate to help us craft those types of new systems. This work aligns with the State Board of Education, their strategic plan, and also has support by the General Assembly. Next slide, please. So we also want to honor, though, the school districts within the state of North Carolina that have put together portraits of their own, and every school district will see themselves in the portrait that comes out of the state. Next slide, please. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to have this regionally led design process, and we intend to interact, to engage, to convene over 1,000 stakeholders in our 8 educational regions to help us craft this. This is not a DPI project. This very much is going to be grassroots, bottom up type of engagement so that we really feel like we can capture what the hopes and aspirations are on the ground. Next slide, please. So here are the types of engagement, the engagement map, if you will, of who we would like to be at the table with us as we design these, the North Carolina portrait. So we want to hear from students, educators, families, school leaders. The whole educational spectrum are going to be vital to this. But in addition to that, imagine if we have communities of faith and business leaders, higher ed, community members, elected officials, social service agency, all of us in a conversation about what does that graduate, what should they know, what kind of mindsets, what do we want for them when they graduate, what do we want them to have, and how are we going to move towards that? We want all of these voices at the table with us as we move through the process. Next slide. So But what we're not going to do is move away from academic rigor. That's the baseline. So we need to make sure our children can read, that they have math and science. All of the fundamentals are going to continue to be an anchor to this work. However, we need to instill these skills and mindsets so that our students have this bigger deck, if you will, of skills that will help them persist and be resilient well into their own career journeys and really anchor their communities in the future. Next slide. So what comes next? So we're going to kick off the work later this month. Thankfully, we've got a contract with a wonderful partner called Battelle for Kids. Look them up if you have an interest in their work. They are without a doubt the leader in assembling portraits. They have a wonderful process and amazing leaders that will help guide the 8 educational regions as we move through these conversations. So we're actively recruiting. If you have an interest in this, or if you know people, please let us know, because we are actively recruiting folks for these regional cohorts, and would love to hear your input and who you feel could be exceptional members of these design teams. We're going to create the portrait after that. As we go through the process, we're going to crosswalk that with the existing local PSU portraits of a graduate, get more feedback, refine it again, and then have a portrait reveal sometime late summer, and then build on that. So again, that will anchor that competency-based education system, potentially could lead to something that looks like a portrait of an educator, portrait of an administrator, and other really cool work as we move forward. So next slide. I think that's it for me. Are there any questions? Very good. Again, my thanks to the committee and to the Office of Learning Recovery for inviting me to talk about these things. Feel free to drop me a line. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat. I'd love to hear from you about these really important projects. Thank you.
And thank you so much for that presentation. And I am sure that it will have lots of discussion points for our attendees who are here on the call and for people who are viewing the meeting. Are there any additional questions regarding this presentation? All right, then we will open the floor for any discussion questions or comments regarding all of the presentations that were done today.
I just want to say thank you to the presenters. Great job.
All right, thank you so much for offering that comment. Then I will go ahead and say thank you to all of you as committee members, advisors, and staff for your preparation for the discussions that we had today and as we venture into the future. I will remind you all as committee members that our next monthly meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. So please go ahead and save the date. You are now given the gift of time for today. We have completed our meeting, and unless there is additional business at this time, we will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Oh, the date is Tuesday, March 29th.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you so much. Stephen, do you have a second?
A second.
Stevens.
All right, thank you. You have a second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn today's meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The motion has been approved to adjourn the meeting. Have a great evening, and we will see you all again on March 29th. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.